All right, so Black Friday, the things that need to be done right away, we need to get focused on making sure that everything is shipped, that we get everything that you have bought already shipped now. So the bigger your business gets, the earlier you're going to need to stop sending shipments in. So people will say, when should I stop sending in for Christmas, or when should I stop sending in for Q4? And the answer really depends on a lot of things. So one is going to depend on your warehouse assignments. So if you have a warehouse assignment that, you're sending things all really close to you, we haven't had any backups, then, that's awesome. Then that means you can send a lot later. If you have been sending in and it's normally taking you 2 weeks, then we're already getting close to that point where you need to start shifting towards Q1. Now, we've talked about this before, but depending on the makeup of your inventory, that's also going to change how long you have to send items in. So if you're sending live Christmas trees in, then it's really important that you make sure that you're sending in just enough that will sell before the Christmas season ends, and because there's not a lot that are going to sell in January. If you're selling something like exercise equipment, kitchenware, those kind of things that are going to sell well in January, then there's a lot of things that sell well in January because there's a lot of people with gift cards. So all of those people that are going to use those gift cards, anything that people buy for themselves, not necessarily buy as gifts, so things along the lines of like gag gifts and white elephant gifts, those are going to slow down. We're going to see a slowdown in Christmas ornaments. There are going to be some things that do sell, into January as well. So the reason that we say we got to ship everything before we do anything else is we want to make sure as much of your inventory is available as soon as possible into the Christmas season as we can. So making sure that everything is sent in at, as quickly as possible is really, really important. And how long you have before you stop is going to, again, be made up of your warehouse assignments, what you're selling, and about how long your lead time is. If you have to buy things from a wholesaler, or if you have to have them shipped to you from online arbitrage, you're probably going to need to stop a little bit sooner than maybe somebody who's just, if you're doing retail arbitrage, you're small, then this is your first year, then you're going to be able to ship a lot later than some of the other people that maybe are larger. So we want to send the bulk of our shipments in by next Monday. You want to try to get everything after things that are going to be selling into Q1. We want to see if we can sell those. You can check eligibility to see if you're able to sell merchant fulfilled. And can you send things in later? So, what things are going to sell after Christmas? Those are the things that you can send in. You can wait to ship, or you can keep shipping until December 17th. We want to remember that, this year, we want to look at every year we have to look at when December is actually, or when Christmas is actually going to fall. And this year Christmas falls on a Monday, which means that, we're really kind of, Saturday and Sunday are, then we're not going to get those 2 days before Christmas are going to be a little tight. So we're guessing probably that 2-day air shipping probably is going to end on Thursday the 21st or Friday the 22nd about-ish. So, you're going to see usually the highest number of sales are usually between the 18th and the 20th of December. So that's really where you're going to see the big bulk of sales. Depending on your inventory makeup, you might see a big crash in your sales from the 25th to the 30th. That can be normal depending on your product makeup. So you want to watch your inventory. So especially if you've already, if your wholesale, most of your stuff is already in, then we want to focus our attention on making sure that what we have in inventory sells. So really check for stranded inventory. It's so frustrating when you realize you could have sold something at a huge price, but you don't realize it until after Q4 and all the prices have started to go back down or maybe even tanked. Watch out for brand gating. And, we've already seen some of the posts saying, can I bundle around a brand gating? That's never a good idea. Watch for listing errors. You want to check daily on that. If you have time reimbursements, but that's really people who are only going to be, there are primarily wholesale and private label that haven't really, that have really kind of finished their sourcing for the year. And with wholesale accounts, if you haven't already gotten those letters, then proactively get letters. You might want to reach out to them, make sure that, that they don't have any issues with you selling on Amazon, going out to them and, seeing if there's anything that you can help them with, because if they are going to file an intellectual property claim, you want to be able to stop them by having that good communication before we even get to that point. So stale inventory is going to be something we want to try to move as much as you can during this next 45 days. So make sure you take a look at your sales and traffic by child, see if something is not moving. We want to make sure, is it a traffic problem or is it a conversion problem? So if it's not getting traffic, then we need to increase the traffic. But if it's not converting, there's no point in bringing more traffic to it. So we're going to dump it, or we're going to enhance it, or maybe run some sponsored products. We only run sponsored products on items that we can either go back to the well over and over again, or we have a large quantity. For us, a large quantity is 100 right now. But, there was a time when a large quantity, what for us was 10 or 15. So depending on the size of your business, it's going to be anything that takes up a good percentage of your capital. That's really what you're looking at, is really what's going to take up if you can free up some of that money that you can turn around and maybe sell an item, merch, and fulfill, or have inventory ready for Q1, then that's a great idea. The other thing we want to look at in sponsored product, we talked about this last week, is, how much bandwidth do you have and how much margin do you have? So you have to think about the amount of time that it's going to take to set up these sponsored products, and how much, you might say, well, I need to move this item, and so I'm going to spend $20 on that. But it's not just the $20, it's the time that you spent away from sourcing, away from repricing other things. We are having a webinar tomorrow on repricing, to make sure that everybody has their repricer set up. We're doing that with Be Cool. So, if you have any questions about how to get your repricer set up, we really want to make sure that is taken care of completely before Black Friday. The biggest reason isn't to reprice down, but it's to reprice up. When the demand starts to really outpace the supply, this is the time of year where prices get really out of whack and they can jump up really fast. We want to make sure that your prices are automatically jumping up even while you're sleeping. So even if you don't have a repricer the rest of the year, it might be worth it for you to get for just the end of this year. How you set up your repricer is going to be dependent on, how much supply and demand you have. Remember that scarcity is going to make that item more valuable. And you want to watch for Black Friday sales on things that you already have in inventory. So even if you're not shopping for Black Friday, we still want to take a look at those ads. And if you see something that you're heavily in stock that you have that's going to be available for a Black Friday sale, you might price that item a little bit more aggressively, work to move those items a little bit faster, because you want your items to sell out before all the people who got the items with Black Friday deals get their inventory in. So you want to make sure you're kind of keeping an eye out, even if you're not shopping, who's getting a good deal on these products. So if you're only wholesale, you could look up, Black Friday deals plus that product and see what items are going to have Black Friday sales that might change the supply and demand, and take that into consideration. The most important feature in a repricer is that it reprices up. Because of the crazy storage fees the last couple years, the consequence of that is that there's a gap. There's things that there's way too much of, and those things are going to tank even harder because there's too much of them and people can't move them, and they're extra motivated to move it because of the storage fees. But there's also going to be things that there might have been normally enough supply to cover the demand, but because people were holding back on sending items in because of those big monthly storage fees, they might sell out and have the price go up significantly. So that is when you can take advantage of that with your repricer. It's also a good chance to look at things and see if it's worth merchant fulfilling. You're going to get a lot higher velocity on merchant fulfills than you would the rest of the year because so many people are shopping. So, we want to keep an eye on that. The other thing to think about as we're repricing is, how do you identify softening markets? So you want to look for, how do I know when a price is going to start to fall? How is that the supply has started to catch up? So when we see things that are going to sell for an increasing amount, what we're looking for is, stores can't keep it in stock. So it's probably going to be that LOL ball thing. People can't keep that in stock now. And there's a lot of other things that I don't want to out because people are selling them, but there's things that people can't keep in stock. That's going to indicate that that price is going to go up. When we're seeing a ton of people restocking, and we see lots of new sellers with lots of quantity coming in, that means the market is probably going to start to soften. The price could start to go down. When we see that increased number of sellers, we often see a volatility in pricing that goes along with it, especially as that inventory ages. And then we want to think about large quantities in stores or highlighted, different sales that have been highlighted. You also have to think about what has been highlighted in groups as far as bolos and lists. Sometimes, you can have an item that's doing really, really well, and then, a large community of sellers all become aware of it. And while there might not have been a ton of quantity, when you have everybody in every state looking in all of their Walmarts for it, you can find quite a few. So you want to make sure you're kind of keeping an eye on that, keeping an eye on especially things that you have a lot of quantity on. And we want to, I don't recommend that you share bolos in any groups because it can soften the market on things. And even if you're out of stock, somebody else might not be out of stock. So now that's not a value judgment. If you sell bolo lists, I'm okay with that. It's just a personal thing for me. It's just not something we do. People always ask us if we have a Q4 bolo list, and we don't for that reason. The fourth thing you want to do is you want to extend your selling season as far as you can. So we want to make sure if you merchant fulfill, then you can extend your time out because you're going to be able to basically buy an extra week or two of Q4 sales. You're going to have to check your categories, and I recommend that you do a trial of merchant fulfill next week. So do a couple of things merchant fulfill. See how long it takes you to send those packages before you make all of those listings available, because once it sells, you have to get it sold. You are shipped. You have to get it shipped, and you have to get it shipped on time. And if you haven't done some practice so you know what the shipping costs are actually going to be, so that you know how much time it's going to take you, you know what materials you're going to need, you can get yourself in big trouble. So you want to assume the worst case for shipping. So if you live, I live pretty much on the West Coast. So we usually will calculate how much it would cost us to send something to Maine, and we build that cost into our price. So if I was Chris, who lives on the East Coast, I would probably say, okay, if I had to ship this to, Seattle, how much would it cost me to send there? And then if, you get something that, you can ship that's closer to you, so maybe it costs a little less, then that's a bonus. We want to assume the worst case for shipping in merchant fulfill. And we get really spoiled with Amazon partner rates. So, make sure that you're really taking advantage of all of the calculators that are out there to help you. Make sure that you have those mailing supplies and watch for items that are really close to first class. So especially if you're using like Profit Bandit to tell you how much you'd make on merchant fulfilled, if an item is like 11 ounces, it will say that you can ship it first class, but by the time you put it in a box or a poly bag with the tape and the packing slip, sometimes that can put it over the weight limit. So you want to actually weigh it with all of the supplies to make sure, especially on things that are close on the border for first class, take advantage of those regional boxes. And what I usually would do is I would take a couple of flat boxes with me, and I'd only buy items that fit in the boxes that I have. Now you're going to look utterly ridiculous bringing empty boxes with you in a store. So, it's going to depend on how you feel about that. And, you could always buy one, take it out to the car, see if it fits in the box, and go back and buy more. For me, I am lazy, and so I'd rather have it sitting in the bottom of the cart and, be able to check those items. If you're planning on doing merchant fulfilled to kind of extend that season, you need to start looking for those items now so that you're ready. So you might say, well, I'm going to really focus on FBA for the next 7 days, and then I'm going to really focus on merchant fulfill. And then about the 17th of December, I'm going to switch over to really focusing on Q4. If you're going to skip merchant fulfill, then what I would say is you move towards those Q1 items probably mid-December. So if you can have 5 to 10 items that you're focusing on for merchant fulfillment, then that makes a big difference. If you can, get the packaging, the weight, make a list of how much they all weigh, pull all the items. So once they start to sell, you're going to pull all the items that sell, print all the packing lists and labels, and you'll be able to know that by already having a list of the weights ready to go. And then you're just going to double check them before shipping. So you're going to double check that the right packing slip goes to the right item, to the right label in the right box. And so you make sure you're double checking. If you have the capability to have a second person check every item before it goes out, then that's all the better. But I know not everybody has that option. I know the year that we did a ton of merchant fulfill, I was doing it all by myself, and I had to go back and check them 3 times because I was just nervous because I was so tired because we did so many of them. So let's talk about the thing that everybody's excited about, getting your shop on for Black Friday. The way that we always have prepared for that is we comb through the flyers now. Avoid anything that's a doorbuster. And so you go for stores that are outside of the norm. If you're not going for stores that are outside of the norm, if you're going to do something like Walmart, make sure you're hitting the items that are good the whole time so you can go in between that 1 a.m., 3 a.m. rush. You'll be able to get in and out faster. So if we're going to Walmart and the next wave of Black Friday sales come at 5 and it's 4:30, I will leave before I have everything ready and in my cart before I stay there till 5:01, because at 5:01 the lines are insane again. So kind of pace yourself. Think about when these things are happening. Think about Q1 inventory too. This can be a great time to get some inventory that you might be able to sell at Q1. So don't limit yourself just to things that are going to sell for Christmas. Do remember that you have to think about how your inventory capital is spent, and then if you have the opportunity to spend money that will turn before Christmas, we want to do that. But you also are going to need some inventory to sell in January. So be thinking about things that people buy for themselves with gift cards. The easiest way is to really have these flyers to determine what, like if you have a couple staple stores you're going to hit, find the other stores that are around that, and then you can kind of create yourself a map and a path of how you're going to hit all of these different stores. What I'd recommend is that you have your VAs go through the lists of all of these different stores, especially stores that are outside of the norm, stores that not everybody else is shopping at, stores that have regional distribution or are somehow hard to get in and out of. Those can be really great for Black Friday. And you want to make sure that, so basically what you want to have is you want to have this list. And on that list are all items that you can buy that meet your profit criteria, but you want that list to exceed the amount of capital that you have. So if you're going to spend, $500, then you want to have a list of at least $2,000 of good quality items. If you're going to spend $10,000, then I'd like you to have at least $15,000 on your list. So the idea is that you don't want to waste any of the Black Friday time scanning. And plus, there's such a frenzied energy in the stores, it's easy to make bad decisions. So instead of scanning in the stores, I'd rather have you go through the flyers, talk to the employees. If you know that there's something you really want to hit, you might be able to ask them, where they're planning on putting this. Are they planning on, like with Walmart, they take a lot of their items and they put them in pallets in the middle of the aisles. So you're not going to be able to map out how you're going to shop that store until you get to the first one. But after you get to the first one, you want to know how many you want to buy. So you can do that. I would recommend going in teams if you're planning on really shopping crazy. Get in teams of 2 to 3. One person parks, gets the cart, stands in line. The other person is filling up the things on the list and checking out. You can kind of approve things, and then what you can do is you can either go to the walk to the next store if it's in the same complex. You can even take an Uber to the next store, get started while they're checking out and loading the cart. You can use that with lifts with gift cards or liquid cards. Use common sense though. If you met somebody on Craigslist, do not give them $1,000 worth of gift cards. You know, we are only going to give gift cards to people that have emotional ties to us or have already been employed with us. People who we owe more money than is the gift card. So those kind of things. And you want to know how many is the maximum number that you want to get of each item. If you're going to have multiple teams going out, I would recommend a Google spreadsheet. You use that Google sheet, and as they're buying it, they can just update the quantities. This way, the other teams can see how much has been purchased. You could also use you can use a communication like Slack, and having a virtual assistant be updating things so they can say I bought this of this and this. They can just take a picture of the shopping list and how many they bought, and having somebody back at home updating the Google sheet of how many they're still looking for on those lists. So know how many the maximum is you want to get at that price with your listing. You're going in ahead of time. So this way, again, we're not spending time scanning except for things that were surprised, unannounced Black Friday specials. So you want to kind of glance for those, but don't get too caught up in those. If you can find out what those are going to be from an employee, that's really the best way to do that. So the other thing, as far as getting your items back home, trailers are much cheaper than U-Hauls. So if you have the ability to haul a trailer, because you don't have to pay for the mileage, it's going to be much, much cheaper. So what you can do is you can have one car with a trailer, park it away from the big retail, and then a second team member can load it in batches with a car or with carts. And then you can keep track of those items as you buy to kind of speed up the listing. Because ideally what you want to have is, as everything gets unloaded, we want to have a list. We had a list of everything we were going to buy. If you can spend a couple extra minutes at each store as they're checking out, updating that sheet of what they actually purchased, then somebody can actually be listing those items while somebody else is shopping. So the parent that is at home with the kids, or you when you get home, you're going to have a list of exactly what ASINs you bought and how many of them, so you can get those items listed faster. And then when we did these big buys, what we always did is we separated the things with high prep from the things with low prep. So things that just need labels, we processed those first, and anything that needed like poly bags or bubble wrap, we put those into the corner and put a tarp over them. It really helped Gabe a lot to have things away, because if he saw everything all at once, he would get really kind of overwhelmed sometimes. So if you can just focus on the ones that that you can get out right away, then you can get those shipped out first and then get the second batch ready. You want really all of this stuff, if possible, should be on UPS trucks like Monday morning. So we would always take them to UPS first thing Monday morning. So here's some other things that we have done for Black Friday is we rented an Airbnb. We rented a full house. I made sure that the owner of the home knew what I was doing. So if you got emails from the neighbors, he wasn't thinking that we were going crazy. We rented tables from a party supply company, and we basically moved all of the furniture to one side of the house, and we set up tables, and we just set up the tables, even though tables aren't as effective as the shelves for a one night thing or 3-night thing. We rented all of these tables. We sorted everything on the table. We had some people come pack. We got pizzas. If you have somebody who's new, a family member, all that they're going to do is put stickers on, and you're going to double check everything. That allowed us to really get things done really quickly, and we didn't have to really train anybody, because they're just, you've already printed the labels, they're on top of them. You're going to look at the label and say, okay, this is apples to apples, this is apples to apples, this is the apples to apples box. All right, so put these stickers on these 12 things, and let me know if you have extra stickers or extra boxes. When you're done with that, I'll give you the next thing to sticker. And you're just going to have them move forward and tell them you're going to be a little crazy about it, not that because you don't trust them, but just because it's really that important. It could really ruin your business. Let them know how crazy it can really be. Be ready to multi-channel fulfillment. You can cross-sell on eBay, Jet, Walmart. And then if you find things like, maybe things that we know have been restricted but are still really hard to find, then don't forget you can also sell those items on Facebook Marketplace. Now you're going to get hassled. People are not going to be happy about it, and you need to know the rules of those the communities if you're in a community versus just using the straight marketplace app. But it can be a great place to sell items. You can also sell things on Craigslist. I think Facebook Marketplace has a much bigger audience these days. But don't forget there's other ways to sell as well. So think about that. In addition to thinking about Q1, making sure that you have inventory, but we want to make sure it's planned excess inventory. Look for categories that are not hit hard by post-Christmas clearance. So toys, what happens is after Christmas, they mark those toys 70, 80, 90% off. So a bunch of people get that supply at that cost, so they're able to tank the price. And sometimes those prices might take 6, 7 months to come back. So anything that's really heavily clearanced, that's not the thing that I personally want to carry into Q1. So I want to make sure that things that I'm carrying into Q1 are things that I know are not going to get clearanced out, where people are going to have tons of inventory that they got at dirt cheap. Make sure you give yourself a week or two to kind of digest 2017, to get your books in order, pull your inventory, and even if you just do textbooks, you want to make sure that you give yourself, you have a consistent inventory going in January. Before you spend your winnings, before you plan your cruise or whatever you think you're going to do with your Q1 money, make sure your taxes have been paid and your books are done. They don't need to be closed. So, I mean, if you can still have your accountant be working on things, but I want you to have an idea of how much you're going to pay in taxes before you plan that cruise. We got ourselves not in trouble, but we probably spent some money we shouldn't have the first couple of years because we were such on a cloud nine. My friend that's a psychologist, some of you have heard this 20 times, says that when your emotions are really high, so you're really happy or really upset, your IQ drops 15 points. So you kind of keep reminding yourself that when you're in the middle of this Q4 high, you're not going to be making the best decisions. We want to think about how we're going to provide our business the most stability going forward, not just getting excited about the money that we have now. Think about how much inventory you want to carry into Q1 and what kind of things you're looking at. And if you're looking to show higher profits or reduce taxes. Because if you're looking to reduce taxes, you're going to buy supplies, shipping supplies and courses, things like that. Now, don't buy those things just to reduce your taxes. Only buy them if you actually need them. Buying something just to reduce your taxes doesn't make mathematical sense. But if you know you're going to buy supplies, either in December or January, you're going to have to buy boxes and you're trying to reduce your taxes, we buy them in December. Now, I'm not a tax consultant or accountant, so check with your accountant and see if that's the right advice for your company. Some don't do's for Black Friday. We recommend you stay away from doorbusters. Have the shipment ready by Monday, even if it's a partial one. Make sure that you don't get crazy on items that won't move after Christmas. And then don't assume all prices will go up. Those things that are on Black Friday specials, you kind of almost want to plan that those prices are going to go down. Plan ahead for those shipping costs, and if you're thinking about taking a loan for this last Black Friday push, we want to think about, do you have a strong plan? And what happens if that brand gets gated? What happens if, something, we run into some other obstacle? You need to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. We don't want to do anything that's going to put our family in jeopardy or our business in jeopardy because we're trying to kind of put it all on black. Now, there's some of you that's your personality. That's cool. But you guys know who you are and you guys know that you're feeling, so you need to start looking. I forgot to change the year on this slide. So what is your plan for 2018? Do you need to, they're going to start thinking about that. Do we need to move to wholesale? Do we want to start working to consulting? Do I feel overwhelmed? Because overwhelmed means that we're missing some clear direction. And what else, what do we need to put in place? What systems or processes do we need to put in place so that you're more scalable? So make sure with that you're prepared for that battle when it comes to Q4, that you've done your research, you're coming in there with lists ready to go, that you're looking at stores that not everybody is looking at, trying to take advantage of any barrier to entry. So distribution, walk to the store, if you find something where you have to, it's a pain in the behind to get to, that can be a really great thing. Places that are easy, places that everybody knows about, that's going to be where you're going to get killed. So, make sure that you're looking at those ads, you're staying away from page one. Think beyond Christmas as much as possible. And remember, if a sale is not nationwide, we're going to expect a bigger drop in those prices because more people are going to have access to those items than if it was just a regional distribution. If you do Disney, make sure you're thinking about what DVDs are in the vault and out of the vault. Disney only releases movies on a 7-year cycle, so know what characters are coming in and what characters are going out, because that's going to help you maximize your profit on those. If you can hit something on page 16, there you can map I'm sorry, if you can find something on page 16 of a catalog for Black Friday, then it's going to mean that less people are going to be focused on them. They're going to have more of those because those blockbuster or doorbuster things, they usually only have like 5 of them. You're going to be able to go in and get them in more stores. You'll spend less time in lines, so you'll be able to hit and be able to spend more on your route. So you want to think about those things as you go in. You can do the different calculation. Make sure you're thinking about dimensional weight. If something is big and light, or even just big, how much is it going to cost to ship? Do I have the supplies ready to send this item in? So I'm thinking about merchant fulfilling, get it to Amazon as quickly as possible. And then I would stay away from heavy prep and bundles unless you know that you have time to get those in or you're going to merchant fulfill them. We need to be really, really cognizant of the cost of your time during these next couple weeks. And this is the time to get somebody from Craigslist to come in and clean your house. You can have them do it while you're prepping. You just keep everything to one side, even if they're just cleaning the bathroom or just mowing the lawns. You can even hire somebody off Craigslist to pack lunches for you, for the kids. Do what you need to do to get everything done. Make sure that expect everything to move. And make sure if you send shoppers out, you're very clear on the guidelines of what to buy and how many. As those items come in to get prepped, so we're going to sort by like items, de-sticker, prep, list, and label, and you're going to pull the smallest shipment first so that the biggest shipment is the one that's left over, so you're not having to move items multiple times.